Hello, everybody. It's your boy Bearded Beer Time here, and it's time for the Diablo 4 review. I just want to take a quick second to thank the Diablo crew for allowing me to be a part of support the streamer program. You can head over to twitch.tv/beardedbeertime. And if you gift 2 subs to the channel, you will get a pretty new mount. You should go check that out. So we're going to get into what I thought about the game, the characters, the storyline, the gameplay, all of the above. It's going to be a good little video. So buckle up and let's get into the review. So first off, I want to talk about the storyline. The storyline and then the back lore for Diablo 4 has had me so engulfed with the narrative that is being told in this environment, in this world of Sanctuary. There were moments in the story that I felt so invested in the character development. There were things that took place that had me like in my feels, in the emotions. They pulled on some heartstrings. So the previous lore, it really builds up and it really gives you a great storyline and a narrative that is being told. They did an amazing job with the writing. They did an incredible job with being able to tell their story while traversing through the world. And I think a lot of games don't necessarily get that right. This one nailed it. It's because it's like every time that you take a step forward and you go and you experience a new environment, it brings up some old Diablo lore and some new Diablo lore. You literally feel the weight of the decisions that are being made between all the different parties. You see the anguish, you see the grimacing of what the desired outcome is. Even though you're not making decisions, it makes you second guess as your character. It makes you just be like, I just don't know. And then it comes to the crescendo, the ending happens, and you're blown away, man. The story really highlights not only the area that you're in, but also what you're going to be facing, the information leading up to the boss fight. It feels very gripping and important to press forward, but also you just want to almost fly through the storyline because you just can't wait to see what the ending is. I had to take myself back a few steps when I was going through the storyline because I'd be like, I don't want to just rush through the story. I want to feel a little bit more about the world and side quests and doing some traveling around and experiencing the world a little bit more. But then you jump back into the storyline and it feels like you just can't stop. It feels like everything that they set out to accomplish in this Diablo with the storyline and the lore, I feel like they just crushed it. I think they did an amazing job. It was fan-freaking-tastic. And so the storyline, I'm going to give this an easy 9.8 out of 10. So now we're going to talk about gameplay. If you got to watch my Diablo 4 beta review, I had a few concerns about the game, how it was going to ultimately be in the in-game, late-game content, and how the content just naturally flowed in the game from the betas. Basically, every concern that I had was not only addressed, but it was almost exactly what I wanted out of the content and the gameplay. You know, one of the big things about the gameplay that I was a little bit concerned about was the content going to feel stale over time? Now that you have side quests, you have strongholds, you have, these events, that events. I was a little bit concerned that there wasn't going to be that like explosion of almost like this overflowing of content to do once you get to that late game. I was extremely wrong. There is so many aspects of the game that just basically every time you world tier up, it unlocks like a whole new set of things to do. And what I mean by that is so that once you go from world tier 2 to 3, what ends up happening is you get access to the Tree of Whispers. You can do that once you complete the storyline, but it really gets enhanced with the Tree of Whispers. You have Legion events, you have world events, you have basically just in-game events that just are just naturally happening. There's never a short moment of content. There is so much to do. I haven't even touched PvP yet. That's how engulfed I've been with the game and just trying to do stuff. There are so many side quests. There are, if you're into collections with the altars of Lilith, those are so fun to go and try to find. I've had a blast doing those. The biggest concern that I have is when you get to these big world events that only happen every couple of hours. I feel like those should probably happen a little more frequently, because even when I was doing the 100-hour stream, there were only a few of those events that I was able to actually jump in time so that I could get in. I believe that it was supposed to be every 2.5 hours, but it feels like it's 4-6 hours before those things ever get released. That's probably my biggest complaint about content, and the overall gameplay is just so much freaking fun, and I really love what they've done with the gold, in which if you want to respec your character based around some insane item drop that you got, or a handful of item drops that you got, it's way easier to be able to respec your character. So I think that that's a really important piece for the longevity of playing different characters, trying out new builds, and just having a blast with the game. So right now I'm doing a bone necromancer that I've got to like almost level 60 at this point, and it's so much fun. It's taken me a lot of tweaking to get down to where I can really feel like I'm strong, but anytime that I get into a fight, it's just fun. It's like I don't feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over and over. It feels like there's a lot of flexibility to the way that you can even play the game inside each character. And so I'm really enjoying and exploring the gameplay even more. It just feels like there's just so much stuff to do that it's honestly a little overwhelming at first. I think they did an amazing job with the gameplay and the content, and it seems like they're really committed. The Diablo crew is definitely committed to creating more and more content as it progresses too. So well done on the gameplay. I'm going to give the gameplay a 9.6. Now we're going to be talking about characters and enemy archetypes. Currently, I have a necromancer that's almost to level 60. And then I have friends that are playing each one of the other classes. And I've gotten their feedback and I've played alongside them. So I got to feel how they play and how their characters have played. And I will tell you this, it is way more balanced than what it previously was for the most part. Every character is viable. Every character has a really, really, really strong build, if not multiple strong builds that you can lean into. I will say the sorcerer is still busted. The sorcerer is definitely still probably the best character, hands down. When you go into a dungeon, you can just literally watch the sorcerer lead the pack and just melt everything. And not only just like melt everything, but they can end up being pretty tanky as well. Druid is insane in the late game. Barbarian is very viable, like super balanced. The necromancer, I felt like I've had to kind of work hard to get my necromancer to where it's good. And it's taken me a little bit of time to navigate that, because you have a couple of different builds that you can lean into, where with either blood or bone or shadow. And I do think that probably it's going to depend heavily on your play group, if you're playing with people, on which one is going to be best for you and your play group. But for me, I'm going with bone, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to play. It does insane amounts of damage, just like big bursts of damage. That makes things really, really interesting in crazy crunch moments. But I think across the board, characters have been way better balanced than in the betas. Now let's talk about the different the different enemy archetypes. The enemy archetypes, definitely each class has a specific enemy archetype that is problematic for each class. And I think that is incredible design from an enemy design and a character design, because you shouldn't be able to feel just incredibly overpowered by being a certain class. There are different enemy archetypes that really cause problems and issues for each class. So that is an incredible design mechanic that I think was a really wise, and I think that they succeeded heavily on that. So with the character balancing and the enemy archetypes, I'm going to give this a 9.3. I definitely think I would probably score this higher if the sorcerer is a little more balanced. The amount of damage that they're able to do is just absolutely insane. Now we're going to talk about combat. I'm not going to touch too heavily on this because I already spoke about it in the gameplay and in the characters. But like I said, I've been 100 hours into the game, and combat has never felt stagnant. Because as you get new equipment and new perks, different things that you have on your gear, it really kind of helps you guide you towards moving your character in a certain direction. But you can also essentially craft the most insane gear that you can as well. So I definitely think that they crushed the combat system. It hasn't become stagnant at all, being 100 hours in and only playing one character 100 hours. And I'm just having an absolute blast in combat still. So I think they did a really good job. Combat, that's a 9.9. Now we're going to talk about sound. I think that sound is probably one of the more underrated aspects of video game development. And I'm going to break this down into 4 different categories: in-game world sound, cutscene sounds or composed music, combat sounds, and then boss fight music and sounds and so forth. So in-game world environment sounds, that type of like ambient noise that's going in the background, absolutely crushed it. They crushed it. Every area feels like it's got a little bit different flow of a music tone. I don't know. I just like it. It's good. The game and the world sound is good. Combat, the sound is incredible. They absolutely nailed the combat noise that happens in the game. They absolutely crushed it. Third, cutscenes and the composed music that's in the background is so freaking good. I mean, it literally makes you have emotions tied to the cutscene that you're experiencing, which is incredible anyway. Almost every cutscene in the game and in parts of the storyline is just so enhanced by the incredible cinematography and the sounds and the music that's going on in the background. They absolutely crushed it. Definitely crushed this. There's one thing that I wish that they could have gotten just a little bit better. Actually, a decent amount better, was the boss fights. I think it could really enhance a boss fight. And I talked about this in the beta review. Really, I want, if they would boost those levels of even the noise or the ambient sound and music going on in the background, and also boosting combat sound during those boss fights, I think that would just enhance the thing across the board. And it makes me a little bit sad that they didn't do that. I don't think that they hit that one out of the ballpark, but everywhere else, they did such a good job on this. I'm going to give this a 9.1. Now we're going to move into inventory and UI. It didn't really seem like they've done any major changes to the UI at all, or even looking at your inventory and the way that you compare items. That was my biggest concern with the betas, was that it just wasn't when you had your items compared to each other, it just wasn't ever super clear on which piece was better. The more I thought about it, the more that I tried to like reason why that they've done certain things in the inventory, and it really is in the UI just across the board. It definitely has to factor in that it is on console as well, and they've tried to make a interface that is viable with PC and also easier on console. So that's my only concern really, and I probably would give this maybe like an 8.5 because it really doesn't look like that they've done anything to address any of the concerns that I personally had, and it seems like what other content creators have had as well, or other people playing the game, is that if you're on PC and you're playing the game on PC, if you had the option to have like an interface for PC and then had an interface like it is set up for console, I think if they're able to develop that in the future, well, they'll be a lot more helpful for PC users. Lastly, we're going to talk about controls. I personally like to play with mouse and keys and controller for different aspects of the game. So when I'm in combat, I feel like I have more control, which feels weird to me. I will say this though, is if mouse and keys had WASD controls, I would 100% switch to mouse and keys exclusively. But up until then, I just think, me personally, I love the way that combat feels on controller. Anytime that I go into town, I fully switch to mouse and keys. Anytime that I'm in combat, I will be on controller, and it allows you to adjust on the fly so quickly that I literally never feel the lag between switching from mouse and keys to controller. It feels incredible to play the game that way. And if you're a diehard mouse and key player, I get it. But it might be worth trying out. But if you like controller, it's a lot of fun, but definitely playing it on PC and then being able to switch between the two, I think is hands down the best way to play the game. So the controls, I think they absolutely crushed this. This is a 9.9. Lastly, the only thing left to do is to do the overall review. First off, I definitely want to say, man, big shout out to the Diablo 4 crew and making a game not only so good, but also I played the game 100 hours from when the pre version of the game came out all the way up until the launch of the game to everybody. I never had any server issues at all on PC. Not a single one. I was able to log into the game, never be in a queue, and play seamlessly. This is the first time that I can remember in the last decade of any game that's a huge AAA title like this that didn't have server issues. So huge round of applause for the Diablo crew on getting this right. Now, I will say that I heard that there was some issues that some folks were having on console, specifically the PS5. So that's a little bit of a downside, but listen, from a launch like this at the magnitude that this was, and that was the only issue, that is a huge applause and kudos to the Diablo crew over there. Overall review from the gameplay, the storyline, the combat, character balance, all of that together, the game is incredible. It is so much fun. I'm having a blast playing it. I literally can't stop thinking about the game. The only thing I want to do is to play it. It's got me gripped. It's got me and I'm 100 hours into it, and it's still, there's just so much to do. So they've really have outdid themselves, and I think they did a fantastic job. I'm going to give this a 9.6. It's got to be game of the year contention. I mean, it's going to be hard, and especially in this day and age in the gaming industry, where games just seem to just basically go from, they just stay in beta the whole time, and that they don't ever come out with the full game, and it's in beta. That's their excuse for everything. In having a subpar game on release is because it's still in quote unquote beta. I think Diablo 4, and they absolutely crushed it. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Again, shout out to the Diablo crew for allowing me to be a part of the Support a Streamer program. You can check me out live as I go through my own Diablo quests, and that's at twitch.tv/beardedbeertime. You can also check me out on my social media on Twitter, Instagram, to get you up to date on anything that is actively happening in the world of Bearded Beer Time. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and you can get your own BBT merch as well. Links all down below. Cheers, everyone.